Hello and welcome to Chapter 3 of my Top Flight Cessna 182 Skyline build. In this chapter we go over some modifications that I have made and also look at the progress because things are getting close to the covering stage. These are the parts I enjoy the most as the project is finally coming together and you can actually see the light at the end of the tunnel.
As you know, building models is a series of milestones, sometimes a bit of a setback as well, but every day usually you go by what you've accomplished or a milestone as such. So the baggage compartment was a milestone for me, and the last thing that I was working on was the tail feathers, the empennage, getting the elevators and the rudder to function properly. So this has worked out quite well. So have a look at them and see what you think. Now this was just a mock-up to make sure that my linkages were the correct length, the servo arms, which had to be modified, especially for the rudder, that they were functioning properly, because once this is completed, they want you to box everything up so it's not accessible. I think I might change that and put something so I can actually access those areas, just because I'd like to be able to access them. So right now I have the elevators hooked up just to make sure that they're going to move. They've got adequate movement, and I'm very happy with that. And here's the rudder with the full movement. That's basically what needed to be checked. And everything is working and functioning well. Obviously, I'm not going to make the hinges permanent until after it's covered and painted. It makes it a lot easier to do that kind of work when it's applied to the airplane. So, another milestone. As you know, I've talked quite extensively about modifications that I like to do to my aircraft, and I usually do that to hopefully make it easier to use, easier to repair, easier to adjust, any of those types of things. What I really don't like to see in a model is having something closed in completely with no access without literally tearing the aircraft apart. With that in mind, one of the modifications I've elected to try is basically on the empennage of the aircraft. The plans call for, once the connections are made for the elevator and the rudder, you basically finish up the rear, close it up, and it's not accessible anymore. I'm certainly not a fan of that. So I think what I'm going to do, and again, I'm borrowing this from Bayona's RC World, the chap Quam, who has basically done this modification and gave me the idea to pursue it. So what I'm going to do is make it so that the tail cone area is removable, so I'll have access to make adjustments, or God forbid something breaks or comes untied. At least I'll have some access rather than have to tear the whole airplane apart. So here you can see the rear bottom of the fuselage, basically the underneath of the stabilizer, and also you can see the clevises and the control rods that come here, one for the elevator and one for the rudder. So the problem is, in the plans, what it calls for is this block here, which I've already cut to shape. It just needs to be formed. This is going to be permanently affixed here, almost completely blocking off what you can see, but then to complete it, the tail cone is added, the plastic tail cone is added, and that basically seals everything off. So, not really a fan of that. Obviously this is just roughed in now. And so I think what I'm going to do is make this block and this one piece. They're going to be pushed together, and I'll have two screws going down through here to a mounting block so that I can remove that area and have access to those controls. And also there's some electrical wiring going to be in there as well, because I plan on putting the fin beacon on as well. So that's what, continuing on that now, and the next update we'll hopefully see what the result is. Of course, there is one major consideration that has to be considered doing this modification, and I'm sure you've already thought about it. But obviously what's happening now is I'm adding weight to the extreme rear of the fuselage. So we know what's going to happen with the weight and balance. It's going to have to be compensated by adding weight to the front of this particular model. Now, my gut feel is that this is going to be a nose heavy model anyway. It certainly tends to seem that way with what I've done so far. But time will tell. But I still make the modification because I think it's worth the little bit of a weight penalty that may incur.
These following pictures are my progress as I was shaping the tail cone and basically knitting the two pieces together so we'll make it removable as one piece.
My modification to the rear cone area, so I can have access to the control linkages for the rudder and for the elevator, is pretty much completed now. I got some final sanding, a little bit of filling to do to blend it in a little bit better, but overall I was quite pleased with how it came out, and it is basically a direct copy of what Bayona did from Bayona's RC. I really like the process, and I like the end result, so I thought I would duplicate it. And again, I don't have the quality of workmanship that he does, but overall I was very pleased with the end result. As you can see, it comes off easily. I have full access to the interior, and I kind of like that. I just didn't like the idea of this being completely bottled up. Not only is the linkages in there, but the wiring for the light will be there as well. So, done. And here's just a little bit more of a close-up view of the interior where you can clearly see the linkages, and you're going to see why I wanted to have access to it. It just kind of makes life a whole lot easier. So, thanks again, Bayona. Great idea.
Because the balsa wood was well over 20 years, when I started sanding the wings, some interesting patterns developed. You certainly can see each one of the ribs clearly. Here the nose cowl is being fitted to the firewall and also centering of the prop. I noticed there was a significant gap at the top of the tail cone towards the fin, so I decided I'd have to do something with that. And basically just added a little bit of filler balsa wood, and kind of blended it in. Still a bit of a gap, but not quite as bad as it was. At this point, several projects were underway. Roughing in the rear window, started fabricating the lift struts, which was a fairly lengthy process, cutting to length, shaping, and of course adding the fairing so that they would fit. But as you can see in this picture, they came out reasonably well. I was quite happy with them and certainly add to the aircraft. Here is the power panel for the engine and radio installed in the baggage compartment. And here you can see I'm working on the servo hatches at the bottom of the wing. Each flap has a servo, each aileron has a servo as well. The flap servos actually use hidden actuator rods, so that's kind of cool. And so that's a wrap for this chapter. If you enjoyed the presentation, please drop a like and subscribe if you want. With spring in the air, this will probably be the last chapter update for some time. I usually don't do much building in the spring and summer, so it may not be till fall, but hang in there. You will see the completion of this model, hopefully by the end of this year.